Alright, I better start this one now if I want to get it out in time for Halloween. I'm wearing my Haunted Mansion fedora today because we're going to be talking about Are You Afraid of the Dark? This was a 90s Nickelodeon children's horror anthology show. If you've seen Goosebumps, this is basically the same thing. However, the only difference is this one is watchable. Boom! Roasted! As you can see by my various DVDs here, the original run had 5 seasons, with a later revival bringing 2 more. And yes, I also have the original Season 2 DVD. Look, like the DVD, like that. It's so cool, so vintage, we love the 90s. I got bored one day and I decided I'm gonna rank all the episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? But there's a few problems here. First rule, no multi-part episodes. Sorry fans of Cutter's Treasure and the Silver Sight, I still haven't seen that. But we're not counting them too hard for small-minded brain to comprehend. Secondly, excluding the multi-part episodes, there is 86 episodes of this show. How am I gonna cover all of those? Well, I am a speech kid, as this Duo Quarters trophy from the National Individual Events Tournament of Champions 2024 says. Don't ask me about nationals. I kid. I love you, NSDA, you're so good. As a former speech kid, I decided to run a mock tournament with each episode as a different competitor. I'm giving each episode 6 preliminary rounds, and from there we'll move on to quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. I'll explain more as we go on and we get through the rankings. But for now, currently it's the end of July, and if I want to finish this video at all, I gotta start now, so let's do it.
So before we get started, I just want to give you a little outline of how this is going to work. In the top left corner, you'll see what position on the list the episode is currently at. Next to that is of course the title of the episode, and at the bottom will be the ranks it received throughout the tournament. The letter in front of each number shows what section it was in. For the most part, this won't mean anything. However, if you want to see what episodes win against which, then you can decipher that throughout the video. As we go on, there might be some episodes I like more than others that get placed lower on the list. However, that's because it went against harder competition. I tried to kind of show that in this example here. There's nothing too controversial I disagree with in my rankings, which is why I'm keeping it, and also I spent like 5 days doing this. Of course I'm going to keep the end result. I'm also going to put who told each story and what season it's from under the episode. That way you can keep track as we go along for the rankings at the end of the video. Anyways, with that being said, let's get on with the video. My least favorite episode of the show is The Tale of the Gruesome Gourmets. It has this campy, silly vibe, and it doesn't even feel like it's an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's about these kids who think these 2 men are cannibals, and it just doesn't work. It's not scary in the slightest, and it's easily predictable from the beginning they're not cannibals. It's just horrible. The Tale of the Virtual Pets can pretty much be summed up with that one meme of, it's not video games on your phone, this is actual paper. Whoever wrote this obviously had never used any bit of technology in their life. The episode follows, what if Tamagotchi were evil? And yeah, that's the whole thing. The main character has also never used a computer before, and like, this is 1999 when this takes place. You can probably go to any one of her lines in the episode and she'll be like, what's a mouse? I'll use my pencil. Also, 10 out of 10 line delivery for this.
Tom? Isabel? Oh man, I killed you guys!
It makes me laugh every time. The Tale of a Door Unlocked is the first episode on this list from the original run, and yeah, it's not good. It's also the first episode to feature a reoccurring character in Sardo. No mister, accent on the dough. He's a fun character and this con artist that acts like he knows what he's doing, but unfortunately his episodes almost always follow the same plot and aren't that enjoyable. This one is about this kid who gets this door that can see the future, and he sees this girl burned to death in a fire, and then he meets her at school, and he's like, oh, have you ever been in a fire? Don't burn alive. Yeah, the acting is really bad, and it seems like at the end, the writers didn't know where the episode was going, so they just threw in a ton of random bullshit, and I'm like, yeah, the kids will love this. Oh, they'll eat this up. The Tale of the Nightly Neighbors is the first episode on this list I reviewed before, as I ranked all the Season 1 episodes. And if you've watched that, then you remember that this is my least favorite episode. It's your typical my neighbors are vampires story, and they really don't do anything special with it. There's this twist at the end that the kid was a vampire the whole time, but like, I thought we knew that. As we go on, you'll probably hear me gush about how much I love Season 3 and why it's the best season. Except for the Tale of the Carved Stone. It's another Sardo episode, and yeah, it's basically the same as The Door Unlocked. I'm not even sure I remember what happens in this one. I'm pretty sure Sardo sells this girl get this, a carved stone, and then she's able to time travel through mirrors. And then there's this evil guy that's chasing them, and he's just kind of there. He doesn't really do anything. The Tale of the Jagged Sign is the first ghost story on this list, and you'll notice that Are You Afraid of the Dark's ghost stories are all pretty similar. The difference is they're usually saved by good acting or good art direction, and this one is not. It's your typical old people, unrequited love story. However, the climax takes place in broad daylight, and the acting and cinematography really doesn't help. The Tale of the Long Ago Locket is another one where I don't even remember what happens. There's this guy, and he's too scared to ask his crush out, so then he goes into the woods, and he meets this guy who's dead from the past, and then he's being chased by redcoats, and then, like, he has, like, save him somehow. I don't know, it's something like that. The difference is this one kind of has some suspense, so it's at least a little better. The Tale of the Dream Machine is one of the first episodes on this list I'll actually watch. I think it has a cool idea of a typewriter with whatever you write on it coming true. However, it has the same problem as A Door Unlocked, where the longer it goes, it just seems like the writers ran out of ideas and had to end the plot somehow. Acting in this one could be better too.
It's got some kind of power.
Is that possible? Could this be a dream machine?
The Tale of the Stone Maiden has some of the most laugh-out-loud bad lines in the show.
I'm saying maybe we should take a time out here to figure out where we're going.
I don't believe this. If that's the way you feel, fine. This isn't my choice.
It's not mine either.
Well, yeah, it is.
It's about this couple, and they break up, and then the guy turns into stone, and the girl has to get him back. And then they meet this guy named, like, the Protector, and he's like, oh, I reduce, I reuse, I recycle, and I rescue or revive, or whatever the fourth R is. I don't remember. And then they meet the woman who made the statue, and she's like, oh, half of it got removed from the park because the budget. And I'm like, what? I don't think that's how that works. This one's really preachy, and it has some bad acting, but at least the story is kind of interesting. Speaking of preachy but kind of interesting, we have the Tale of the Hunted. Instead of save art and the environment, this one's saying save the environment and don't hunt. However, isn't that why hunting licenses exist, so people don't overhunt and animals don't go extinct? I don't know, never mind. The main character gets turned into a wolf halfway through, and her dad doesn't know she's a wolf, which is kind of interesting, and the shots are even cooler. But this one friend they have really drags it down, because she's like, oh my god, oh, don't kill the wolves, they did nothing to you, oh, hunting bad, I'll never hunt, I sleep with the animals even. Okay, she doesn't say that, but you know, you get the point. I have really conflicted feelings on the Tale of the Final Wish. On one hand, the girl that plays Jill does a really good job of being this 13-year-old girl who's obsessed with fairy tales and doesn't want to grow up. Except her friends and family are just such jerks to her. Like, they just make fun of her interests and tell her to grow up, and like, they're not helping. She also does this blood-curdling scream when she sees the Sandman for the first time. And there's this cool effect where she gets pulled under the bed. The production design of the fairy tale she gets pulled into is really cool. I like all the cogs and the fog and the sleeping people floating in air. But then the rest of the episode is just Bobcat Goldthwait being like, this is your fairy tale, and I'm the Sandman, and this is your fairy tale. And the girl's like, I want to go home, I want to go home. And he's like, what is this, your fairy tale? I can't. Also, this one has an ambiguous ending for no reason, and it really doesn't make sense. Sam is a member of the Midnight Society that tells some of my favorite stories, and as you can see by the Long Ago Locket and The Room for Rent, she really dropped the ball in Season 4. The Tale of the Room for Rent is another ghost story, and it's exactly what you expect. A ghost has unfinished business, so he tries to finish it. This one does get points for a nice little twist, and also, I like the main character's relationship with her grandfather. I went into The Tale of the Last Dance having never seen Phantom of the Opera, and I know that's what this one was based on, and Yeah, this one's okay. It's a sweet story, but there's really nothing past that, and I don't really like the boyfriend character. When The Tale of the Walking Shadow started, I had really high hopes for it. It's set in a theater that has this ghost haunting it, and I was really interested to see where it was going, and then it kind of just didn't go anywhere. The ghost is defeated by the main character acting in the play, and also the main character drops in and out of the play like 5 times. It's really annoying. The Tale of the Time Trap is yet another Sardo story, and... Wait a minute, is that the same guy from The Tale of the Walking Shadow? Yeah, he's the main character in both of these episodes. I think it's a good time to mention that Are You Afraid of the Dark has a lot of repeat actors, and this guy's one of the biggest culprits of that. Now, this is Jay Baruchel, who after a quick Wikipedia search, I learned is the voice actor for Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon. Which now is a good time to mention another fun fact about Are You Afraid of the Dark. Every now and then you'll see a young version of a hot Hollywood star. It's kind of cool to see them in this random show. But going back to this episode, it's kind of random. There's this evil genie who grants wishes, but they have some caveat to it. There's a funny scene where he gets arrested immediately after wishing for a new car, but other than that, the episode doesn't really land for me. The Tale of Highway 13 is another episode that had a really strong start, but it's killed by a big plot hole. These teenagers fix up this car from a junkyard, and when they drive it around, they end up meeting these 2 ghosts. The ghosts explain they got into a race with a truck driver, and the truck and the car crashed. However, at the end you learn that the ghosts were the ones who wanted to race the truck driver in the first place, and the truck driver is like, oh, the last thing I wanted was a race. So, couldn't the truck driver just not race the teens? It's a shame, because this one had a really cool idea and it just got destroyed. Just like the cars. Too soon. The Tale of the Full Moon has the same campy tone as the Gruesome Gourmets, but this one is able to pull it off a lot better. Instead of thinking his neighbors are cannibals, this time he thinks his neighbor is a werewolf. But to complicate things, the mom is going on dates with the werewolf, so they have a dinner together. Here, when the kid acts insane, his mom at least lashes out at him for it. The biggest improvement of the episode is that the whole thing isn't for nothing. There actually is a werewolf, and it's the neighbor's twin brother. It's a clever little twist, and I think it works out well. The Tale of the Twisted Claw is another episode that's based on a classic story. This time it's The Monkey's Paw. It's a better executed version of The Tale of the Time Trap, but oh my god, this acting is horrible.
It moved, didn't it? No, it just...
You made a wish!
No, I didn't.
You wish I'd lose my folks!
And also, this one does have a pretty slow start. If you wanted even more awful acting for some reason, then we have The Tale of the Phantom Cab. My favorite part of this one is when Buzz is supposed to fall off the cliff and you can clearly see him standing in the background. It reminds me of my short films where stuff like that would happen. Also, this one does introduce us to our other reoccurring character, Dr. Vink, with a Instead of being a con artist, Dr. Vink always seems to offer help, however it comes with a sinister twist. But notice how I haven't talked about the plot of this one yet. That's cause it's a hot mess. It's the first episode of the show, and you really gotta watch this one for yourself. It's so bad it's good. And now for my hottest take yet. I don't really like The Tale of the Pinball Wizard. I watch Are You Afraid of the Dark to be scared, and this one doesn't give me that feeling. It's about this kid who goes to work in a store. The shopkeeper tells him not to touch the pinball machine, and of course he touches the pinball machine. This ends up with him being stuck inside the mall after hours, and he has to beat the pinball machine in real life if he wants to escape. Except, this doesn't really function like a pinball machine, really. It's kind of more like an adventure game. Now, I have played a lot of pinball, and I get that rules can vary, but still, there's not enough to convince me that we are inside the machine. Because, spoilers, that's the big twist. He was inside the machine all along, and he's stuck there forever. And that's not even mentioning how goofy this episode is. It's really not scary, and it's just a ton of weird creatures and knights and witches running around, and it's a really weird episode. The Tale of the Hungry Hounds is an interesting story. It's about this girl who wants to ride horses, but her mom won't let her ride horses, and then she puts on her dead aunt's clothes, and they go back in time. Then the rest of this episode is just the girl in the pink being like, oh my god, let's go home. And then the girl that's now the dead aunt is like, 2 minutes of exposition, hope you don't miss it. Then the girl in the pink is like, yeah, let's fix that. And then I'm like, wait, what just happened? It's a fine story, nothing special. Oh, The Tale of the Chameleons. I really want to like this one, but production on it was such a mess. Now you may notice that this episode is called The Tale of the Chameleons, and I haven't showed a chameleon yet. That's cause there are none. The whole time they only show iguanas and refer to them as chameleons, and I'm like, listen, I may not be the brightest bulb in the box, but that ain't a chameleon, buddy. And there are also a few scenes in the episode where they're supposed to pick up the chameleon, but it's obviously a rubber toy. Now with that being said, the story is pretty interesting. It's about this girl who gets bit by a chameleon twice, and then the chameleon turns into a human form of her. The human chameleon then turns the normal girl into a chameleon, and then she tries to pull the old switcheroo. Fine episode, fine acting, really good ending, but those are iguanas. Tale of Prisoners Past is a ghost story with a pretty clever twist. However, you got two of the most insufferable characters in the world to work with.
Hey, you owe me $5.
Get lost.
Listen, Jock Itch, you stole half my room, and I'm not gonna let you steal half my money, too.
So take that as you will. I like the prison setting though. It's nice when this show gets creative on where the stories take place. The Tale of the Mystical Mirror had the potential to be really good, but it's just alright. It's about this witch who works for a beauty salon, and all the girls that work for her... What am I saying? Oh my god, I'm too tired for this. It's been 3 days straight of editing this video, man. I can't do it. It's about this witch who works at a beauty salon. The girls who work for her are each given a mirror, and then at some point, the witch uses a different mirror, I think, to turn them into dogs. It's not really explained how she works her magic, but she turns them into dogs somehow. And this is important because 3 dogs equals less years of age for the witch. It's a cool story and there's cool commentary, but when it's compared to some of the other episodes on the list, it doesn't quite hold up. And we're back to season 1. I used to like the Tale of the Super Specs a lot more, but now it doesn't really do it for me. We got this character named Weeds, like the drug, plural. He sprays these powder on these glasses and his girlfriend wears them and she sees these figures in black morph suits. Every time she tries to get rid of the glasses, they end up coming back to her. It's a cool premise, but I just can't take the black morph suits seriously. Also forgot to mention, Sardo is in this one. The whole reason that the girl can see the black figures is because there's 2 dimensions fighting for one plane, and so they do a seance to get rid of the other dimension. But because Sardo is a con artist, he doesn't know what he's doing, and the other dimension ends up winning. It's a super dark ending, and it's a shame because the rest of the episode just doesn't take itself as seriously. Instead, it's filled with Weeds just pulling pranks on people, and there's this really long segment where she walks through her house wearing the glasses. The pacing is really bad, and it makes you feel like you're watching 5 episodes in one. The Tale of the Dark Dragon is one I always go back and forth on. On one hand, I like the idea of a potion that makes you more good looking, and also it's one of the few times where I feel like Sardo works in a story. He sells the potion to the main character knowing it will make him feel more confident, but he doesn't realize that it has a dark side to it. Now it is the dark side, or the dark dragon in this episode that needs a little bit more explanation. Now I've watched this episode a lot, and if I've interpreted it correctly, the dark dragon is the dark part of your soul that you need to overcome in order for there to be no side effect to the potion. If that's the case, the dark dragon is barely dealt with in this episode. All it takes is for the main character to say, yeah, I got in an accident and it broke my self-esteem, but please don't go, and then everything's fine. There are some good body horror effects in this one, but a lot of it is just weird teen romance. The Tale of the Prom Queen is a nice little mystery story. There's no real flaws I have with it besides the acting, and I surprisingly didn't see the twist coming the first time I watched it. Once again, it's not the scariest episode, but it's just a good story. The Tale of the Quiet Librarian has a really good premise. As the name suggests, it's about an evil librarian who needs everything to be quiet. She'll suck the sound out of anything that makes noise, and the editors went about this a really interesting way. They'll just remove the audio file of whatever made sound. So no, it's not a problem with whatever you're watching it on, it's just the way they decided to edit this episode. Unfortunately, the premise is about the only thing this episode has going for it. The characters aren't my favorite, and the villain is defeated in an anticlimactic way. But there is this really creepy shot of the quiet reading room where the librarian hides the kids. Continuing with the trend of perfectly average stories is the Tale of the Misfortune Cookie. This one is basically It's a Wonderful Life, but instead of the main character never being born, it's about if the main character wasn't a part of the family. It's a cool way to do a 2-for-1 of you get your dream, but at what cost? There's sweet family dynamics, but there's not much else besides that. Alright, so the Tale of the Midnight Ride does take a bit to get going, but there's some nice things that keep me entertained while I'm waiting for the big twist. First off, I really love the Halloween setting. I could be wrong, but I think this is the only episode that takes place during Halloween, and they really went all out with this. Secondly, all the interactions with the characters are leading up to something intense, and even though at first it just seems like it's this fake out with the Headless Horseman, when he does show up, oh, it's worth it. Overall, it's not the best episode, especially when you're rewatching it, but it's cool to see Are You Afraid of the Dark do another classic story. Also, does anyone else think it's weird that Are You Afraid of the Dark has an episode that features redcoats, but it's not the Midnight Ride? I don't know, maybe it's just because this show was made in Canada and this is my inner United States talking. The Tale of the Laser Maze is one of the first episodes on this list that I might place higher if I wasn't going solely based off of the tournament results. It has a really good start. Two identical twins who love to compete end up going to this game called the Laser Maze. It sounds really cool, but it's just laser tag with eye tracking. One twin wins the game and is sent to fill out this endless survey on how responsive the game is. And when she wants to leave, the losing twin is ready to battle her again. But this time it turns out that she was a frickin' robot? Yeah, the twist here is that once you lose the game, you get placed into this machine that creates robot clones of you. So now you're thinking, Ben, if you like this much about the episode, then why is it low on the list? Well, it has a pretty big plot hole. The whole time, the villain is talking about how good subjects the twins will make. However, once he makes the clones, it turns out that they don't perform well and are easily destroyed. And then once the twins battle him, it turns out he was a robot too, so maybe the whole thing was that the robots perform bad because they were made by a robot. If this had a bit more explanation, it probably would have landed a higher spot on the list. The Tale of Old Man Corcoran is another simple story, but the mood here is really what put it high. Two brothers are invited to a graveyard game of hide and seek, and they're told about the ghost of Old Man Corcoran. He's a gravedigger that got buried alive once one of the holes he was digging caved in. And during the game of hide and seek, the brothers find him and they try and steal his harmonica. Going back to the mood, I really like this old-timey vintage music they play when talking about Old Man Corcoran. It matches with the rustic cabin that he lives in. And also, this one has a really good twist to top things off. It left me thinking about the episode. The Tale of Locker 22 is another unfinished business ghost story. I don't know why, but this one has always stuck with me. The main character here, who has a French accent, and I forget if it's because she's a foreign exchange student or if she's just like that or something. Anyways, she tries to go back in time to prevent the death of this girl named Candy. As the mystery unfolds, you find out she's about to die in the same way that Candy did. And it's all because of this bad teacher who ends up being the principal in the future. But due to this kid's Oscar-worthy speech...
Stop! Just stop! Look at this. It's rotted through. If you'd have put fire in this, the whole place would have gone up. Hey, don't you check your equipment, Mr. Schaffner?
Oh my God. You could have been killed. Don't know what to say.
Say you're in the wrong line of work.
Candy lives, and in the future, she becomes the new principal. It's a really solid ending and a really solid episode. Now, what's not a solid episode is The Tale of the Whispering Walls. I think this one has a really cool idea and some really good set design, but the story is just all over the place. I think the villain here is supposed to lure people to this house where he traps them, but the logistics of it are not explained in the slightest. To start, he first shows up at the Whisper Inn, and then later he's at the house, but shouldn't he be able to stay inside the house like all the other spirits he's trapped? And also at the same time, the spirits also visit the inn, but only sometimes? I think it's because of this ongoing narrative they have where ghosts are free if it's a full moon on a leap year. Going back to the story, the evil spirit tries to trap the babysitter and the two kids in the house, but it seems like wind defeats him? So if that's the case, then how did he get to the Whisper Inn? That's not even mentioning that at the end, this random old lady who was one of the spirits trapped in the house says, "Oh, I need to see my child again. You're not allowed to hurt these kids." So why couldn't she just do that from the beginning and escape the house? It makes no sense. Is the story confusing? Yes. Does the set design steal the show? Yes. Is the plot mildly interesting? Also yes. Thus, the only spot for The Tale of the Whispering Walls is in the middle of the list. In the middle of the list, simpler stories like The Tale of the Magician's Assistant tend to beat out more complex ones with plot holes. This one is about this kid who ends up being an assistant to a magician named Shandu. I guess they really didn't want Sardo to have his big break. It's your typical Gary magic item story. The kid realizes Shandu's wand can help him and his mom with work. The wand ends up releasing great value Emperor Palpatine. But I do like where they went with this one on the evil wizard being defeated by not obeying the rules of a magician. Shandu had been telling them to the kid for the whole episode, and it works for a nice payoff. Also, the kid has a good relationship with not only his mom, but Shandu as well. Another example of an average episode is The Tale of the Manaha. We have this aggressive camp counselor who tears apart this kid for reading How to Survive in the Woods by Oscar Butts! Sadly, nothing else in the episode is as good as that line. The main character tries his best, but the camp counselor isn't having it. After stumbling down a cliff, the main character finds a cave where a shaman tells him about these monsters called the Manaha. No one believes the main character at first, but after people go missing one by one, everyone starts to believe him. However, from reading the survival guide, the main character learned that fear is just an illusion. Thus, the Manaha aren't real. I really like that approach, and the episode pulls it off for a great ending. The Tale of the Water Demons is another one that would be amazing, but has a big plot hole. Whenever this old sea captain falls asleep, these zombies come out of the water and try to track him down. The two kids get roped into this, and they decide to give back all the treasure the captain stole from sunken ships, in hopes that the zombies won't chase them down anymore. The plot hole here comes from, if the zombies come out of the water, why doesn't this captain just move to, like, Arizona? There probably won't be any large bodies of waters that he'll be at risk of getting found in. Because as long as the captain is awake, the water demons don't chase him. This one has a great mood though, and I really like the shots where it cuts from the water demons to the captain waking up. The Tale of the Captured Souls has really grown on me over the past few years. The episode is about this family who stays in a house, and the villain is able to suck their youth out of the mirrors. While I still don't like how it isn't really explained how the villain is able to suck the life out from the guests, the idea of it still holds up. This has got to be one of the darkest episodes of the show because the villain just keeps tallies of how many people he's killed. What the heck? Lastly, the villain talks too quietly in this one a lot of times.
Let me show you your rooms. I think you'll find them very cozy.
The Tale of the Curious Camera is Say Cheese and Die from Goosebumps, except before? After it came out? I don't know. Editor Ben, give us a little ding to show which one is right. Thank you, Editor Ben. For those of you who don't know that story, whenever you take a photo of something, the subject does not have a pretty future. I do like that it's explained that all the madness is caused by a gremlin that's in the camera and all the photos, but it seems like at the end they just had to jump into any piece of technology they could find hanging around. I get that it jumps into whatever is in the background of the shots, but it feels a little stale after the first time. Speaking of feels a little stale, we got the main characters acting.
Where you going?
Movies, and we're late.
You can't. I mean, don't go.
We haven't been out in weeks, honey. It's only a movie.
Yeah, but
Besides, you wouldn't be interested. It's got dialogue.
Not great. The Tale of the Reanimator is a really fun episode. This girl working at a plant store realizes that the owner is creating a serum that can bring plants back to life. But plants aren't the only thing it can bring back. Her brother doesn't believe her, and they end up bringing back this guy who had to have done something bad, because on his grave it says, "May he be forgiven." I don't think it's ever explained what this man did either. Anyways, the serum that was poured on this guy's grave ends up bringing him back to life, and he ends up chasing the kids because he knows they have more serum. Ending is solid, scares are solid, no real complaints with this one, it's just there are other episodes I like more. I think the Tale of Badge is really interesting, but the story could have used a few improvements. Both the creature design for Badge and the set design for Badge's cave are amazing. The episode follows a girl who finds out some of the women in her family have magical abilities. My problems with the episode are the magic isn't explored as much as I would like, and there's no real explanation for why Badge had to be trapped in the first place. The kids end up freeing them, and all it takes is the main character to play some notes on a flute and then he's trapped again. He says he's after the family's magic, but he doesn't pose himself as much of a threat. Instead, all he does is go, "Where is the center wind?" for like half the episode. The Tale of Jake and the Leprechaun isn't really a scary episode, but it's perfect at everything else. The acting is surprisingly good for season 1, and I like the villain of this banshee posing as an actor. And how can you not love Sean O'Shaney the Leprechaun? Instead of being a master of hearts, stars, horseshoes, clovers and blue moons, hourglasses, rainbows, and tasty red balloons, this leprechaun is a master of herbs. He also appears in the play the main character is doing to save him from turning into a toad. It's a nice story that takes place in a theater and uses Irish folklore. The Tale of the Silent Servant is another really nice concept. These two kids on a farm find this scarecrow that will do anything you command it to. This one really puts the scare in Scarecrow because the design is really spooky. My problem with this one is there's this whole big backstory of how the Scarecrow is controlled. This old farmer carved these dragons to control the Scarecrow, and this other old guy sees it. So then he warns the kids about it, but at the end he takes control of the Scarecrow? I think they were trying to pull off a twist ending here, but I'm not a big fan of it. The Tale of the Zombie Dice tackles a topic that not many kids shows talk about: gambling. The evil manager of Click's Emporium challenges kids to a game of zombie dice, which is literally just luck. If the kid loses, he takes their thumbprint and then they shrink and they get shipped off to a human zoo, I think? The logic here is barely explained. All Click says is that if you have someone's thumbprint, you own them. Is this supposed to be more social commentary? The main character here, who doesn't like to take risks... Oh my god, it's Jay Baruchel again, he's back! Giga Chad J here ends up challenging Click to a game that is impossible for Click to win. This episode is a clever one, and I like that it talks about the risks and pitfalls of gambling. The Tale of the Closet Keepers is yet another episode with one of my favorite premises of the show. The villains, who I think are aliens, end up trapping these kids in a human zoo. The aesthetic of the zoo is really disturbing. The kids are placed in this childlike bedroom, and you see the aliens looking at them through the window, and it creeps me out every time. This one, also like Zombie Dice, has some more social commentary in it. I don't know if this is what they were going for, but there's also this disturbing scene where the kids are being fed. It could be viewed with a lens of how some people think zoos are morally wrong. But the main area of commentary here is that the main character is deaf and the other kid learns to accept her. Because she's deaf, she's not affected by the sounds that the zookeepers use to keep the kids inside. Really nice episode, but the pacing at the beginning kind of drags. Alright, I think it's time for me to start gushing about Season 3. If you've been keeping track, there have only been 3 episodes of Season 3 mentioned on the list so far, with this one being the 4th. And despite not being in the top 35, The Tale of the Guardian's Curse is one of my favorites. This shows just how good Are You Afraid of the Dark and Season 3 are. This episode has an Indiana Jones vibe about it. The single father goes to take his kids on a trip, but gets distracted when a mummy is uncovered. The kids are apathetic at first, but soon end up getting tied into the mystery of the mummy. The best part about this one is that the villain isn't the mummy, it was this evil archaeologist who wanted to keep the treasure to himself. There are some cool flashbacks that explain he was the one that caused some of the strange things that were happening. And lastly, this one pulls off a really clever twist with the Ring of Eternity. If you were to look at all the episodes and note which ones have the most going on, The Tale of the Lunar Locust would probably be near the top of that list. It starts off with a couple seeing something land on Earth. The guy meets this new girl, and you can tell immediately by the way that she acts that she is the alien that showed up. And also, she is very pushy with getting into the plot. However, the episode doesn't hide this for too long, as you find out halfway through. The alien reveals that most of her planet was wiped out by flesh-eating bacteria, and she needs the guy's help to stop it from invading Earth. And it turns out that the kids actually end up succeeding. Well, succeeding with the task of letting all the mother alien eggs hatch. Because our initial suspicions were right, and this girl was evil the whole time. It's gotta be up there with one of my favorite dark endings the show has ever done. Bad acting and predictability bring this one down, but it's still a good watch. The Tale of the Bookish Babysitter is another episode that fans of the show really enjoy. For me, I just think it's alright. This episode revolves around a babysitter who tries to get this kid to stop watching TV and read books instead. The kid has a Gen Alpha attention span, so he starts and stops each one. We learn that the reason this babysitter is so successful is because her books may or may not come to life if you start reading them. And since the kid started like 3 of them, the monsters start running around inside the house. The end of the episode is kind of where they lose me. Turns out that the babysitter was writing a book about the night, and when the kid starts reading it, then he gets sucked into the world of the book, and everything in the house also gets transported to that world, and then he does everything inside the book, and then all's well that ends well. It's a bit of a stretch for me, which is why this episode didn't quite make the top 35. The Tale of the Frozen Ghost is another episode that has really great mood throughout. Half of the episode takes place at night in a house with little to no power, which is already a great start. This one is another ghost story with unfinished business, but I think the mystery element they put in this really helps. Watching the two old ladies banter is also very fun to watch. Unfortunately, acting by the male lead in this episode isn't quite strong. In fact, all I really remember him saying in this one is, "Ghosts?" Editing Ben put a counter of how many times he says it.
Ghosts? Ghosts? Ghost? Ghost? Ghosts?
Once again, good episode, but a little flawed. The Tale of Vampire Town is another really fun story. This goth kid who is obsessed with vampires goes to a town that is notorious for being filled with vampires and tries to see if the legends are true. The manager tries to convince the family that there's no vampires in the town, but we learn through a conversation later that there was a vampire sighting and they think the culprit is the main character. While investigating, he uncovers a real vampire and the chaos ensues. It's a great episode with a really creepy vampire. And to top it off, there's a twist that you may or may not have seen coming. And ending all the non-advancing episodes is another iconic episode of the show, The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner. Let's start with the positives. I love the design of the Ghastly Grinner. He's a supervillain that escaped the comic book, and you can tell just by looking at him. He converts his victims into mindless people who laugh blue drool, and the sight is iconic. The story of trying to finish the comic book and bring the Grinner back where he belongs also flows nicely. Now for my big problem with this episode. It is way too goofy. For some reason, the editors decided, what if instead of normal transitions, we have the Grinner slide across the screen? Every time it shows up, it takes me out of the episode. Also, we have this scene where the two kids are running and the Grinner fades onto the screen, and it just doesn't have the effect they want it to. Is this one memorable with a good story? Yes. But when I'm choosing episodes to watch, this one is just too silly and not serious enough to be chosen. If your favorite episode hasn't been mentioned yet, then that means congratulations, it made it to quarterfinals! From now on, you'll see the ranks an episode got in prelims and in quarterfinals. Now, the position an episode lands is solely determined by how well it did in quarterfinals. There are some episodes that had really good prelim ranks, but not that great quarterfinal ranks, and because I didn't cume the whole tournament, they don't advance. I don't know how much the results would vary if I did cume the entire tournament, but that's beside the point. And just to show how good this show is, any episode that's made it this far in the list is one of my all-time favorites to watch. I know The Tale of the Sorcerer's Apprentice is an episode that people don't really talk highly of, but I always thought it was really fun. This kid named Dean finds this staff, and when he looks into the eyes by it, he gets hypnotized. The staff gets him to find this gem that was in the basement of the school, and he basically turns into the leader of a cult trying to bring back this evil overlord. While I could see how this episode could be boring for some, I always thought of it as a kid-friendly take on cults. Also, this one has an A+ vibe throughout the whole thing. The Tale of the Renegade Virus is a better example of how to do silly elements in an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. This kid plays a virtual reality game, and when a virus gets in it, it threatens to upload itself into the kid's brain. This one is similar to Ghastly Grinner, where there's an evil but ultimately goofy villain. Unlike the Ghastly Grinner, the virus has clear motives and poses himself as more of a threat. The virus is also defeated in a better way than the Grinner is. Lastly, I like the effect of the computer port on the kid's hand. I never thought cyber-based body horror would work. The Tale of the Unexpected Visitor is your typical alien episode. Although, I do like how they make contact with the aliens in this one. A kid ends up sending music tones to a random coordinate in space, and it just so happens that these aliens communicate with music tones. So throughout the episode, you hear this ominous tone playing, which is the aliens trying to communicate back. I also like the glowing spider webs that the aliens use to capture the humans. It matches with the aliens' design, and they both fit into the uncanny valley. Also, whenever I see this scene, all I think of is the scene from Atlantis SquarePants where Patchy sees the aliens. Like, it's basically the exact same thing. Alright, so I don't really know how the Tale of Jake the Snake ended up this high on the list, but I still like it. A kid wants to become a better hockey player, and he uses this stick owned by Jake the Snake. The stick slowly changes the kid into a snake, and his friend has to try and stop the process. The practical effect used for the reptile skin is really cool, however the digital effects in this one need a major upgrade. While Jake the Snake himself has a weird digital face, the rest of his design makes up for it. This CG snake, on the other hand? Yeah, this is just inexcusable. The Tale of the Fire Ghost is a really solid ghost story. This episode goes against what you're taught in 7th grade science and argues that fire is a living thing. The kids end up summoning the ghost of a fire at a fire station, and it's up to them and advice from this nice ghost to try and stop it. Whoever suggested that this episode takes place at a fire station was cooking harder than mama. There's a lot of cool shots in the dark and a lot of really awesome pyro effects. The fire ghost himself just looks like a taller version of the renegade virus, also from season 4. Coincidence? I think not! But when he lights himself on fire, it does look awesome. See, I told you Sam had some of my favorite stories on the list. Notice how we haven't heard from her since we were in the 70s? The Tale of C7 is a simple story that's made up for with some really good cinematography. When this family finds an old jukebox, they have to end up reconnecting these two ghost lovers. This one has a lot of good music cues when they do the first-person shots of the ghost climbing out of the water. The vintage music that the jukebox plays is really nice, and the acting in this one is just very solid all around. Also, it is very important that I make this joke. C7! Kick me! The Tale of the Forever game is an interesting take on stories like Jumanji. What happens in the game happens in real life, however, only one person is playing the game. The winner of the game gets to escape, while the person who loses has to play until they win. And since the players are safe inside, the main character ends up affecting his friend and his sister. This one has a clever ending, but there's some weird thought process changes by both of the people playing the game. It's unfortunate that the Tale of the Wisdom Glass has a few plot holes, because this episode has the best production design in the whole show. A lot of the characters are dressed in robes and wear makeup or masks, so they don't even look human. The episode revolves around this weird card game cult where two kids are on trial for lying. There's this fun jester that's their lawyer, and he makes me genuinely laugh.
I've told you 1,000 times, I didn't steal it.
I object! My client said that 6 times, not 1,000.
You can't object to me.
Overruled.
However, I don't understand the relationship between the two kids. Rich Kid accidentally stole the game at the beginning, but a witness wrongfully accuses Not Rich Kid of stealing the game. Rich Kid goes along with the lie and agrees with the witness, and then Not Rich Kid gets mad for a second, but then he talks to Rich Kid and he's like, you know what? Thank you for saying I would never steal a game. Anyways, I guess I'll take this lie for you. Like, you just got mad at him for that. Why are you apologizing for it? Going from best production design in the show, now we're hitting some of the best makeup design in the show. The Tale of the Vacant Lot is the Tale of the Dark Dragon, but better in every way. The main character wants to buy shoes from this girl Marie, but the main character doesn't have any money. Marie agrees to trade, but it has to be with something of value. The main character doesn't want to trade her ring, so then Marie decides on something that has no value to the main character. The girl doesn't notice any change, so she keeps going back to the shop. However, it turns out that Marie was taking the main character's beauty from her. All the characters who traded with Marie get these really bad blemishes on their faces, and it's really disturbing for this show. I also like that Marie tries to almost reassure the main character and is like, nah, this same thing happened to me, bro, just scam another girl, that's what I did. However, the way Marie is defeated kind of drags the episode down. When the main character finally gives up her ring, Marie just blows away. They say it's because she wanted too much, but I still don't see how that manages to fix everything. Alright guys, after 60 episodes, we finally got it. We got to a good Sardo episode. The Tale of Oblivion also has one of the best concepts for a Sardo episode. The magical item this time is a set of charcoal and a rock that act as a pen and pencil. When you erase the charcoal with a rock, whatever you drew or wrote down gets erased. These two twins don't get along and the boy decides to erase his sister, and yeah, she just disappears. Then the boy has to erase himself and go to where all the missing objects go, Oblivion. Good concept, good acting, and the ending has a really good payoff. For one of the first episodes of the show, The Tale of the Lonely Ghost has some really good mood setting. It's a simple story. In order to join a group of friends, the main character has to spend a night in a haunted house. All of the popular girls don't believe in the story, but it turns out the ghost actually is real. I love all the shots of the ghost and the mirrored "Help Me" written on the walls. This one does have a similar ending to the rest of the Are You Afraid of the Dark ghost stories, but I feel like the emotion in this one hits a lot better. Unfortunately, emotion from the two main characters is lacking. They should probably take notes from this nanny character. I gotta give props to the Tale of the Phone Police because they managed to make telephones scary. Long story short, the older sister tells the main characters not to make prank calls or else the phone police will get them. After a bit of research at the phone station, they find the phone police and they end up kidnapping one of the kids. The rest of the episode basically follows any jailbreak-like story you've seen, but this one does get extra credit for the ambiguity of it all. The older sister says she made up the phone police as a lie, but we know they're real. This pizza delivery car at the end was a disguised phone police car. I may be reading too much into this one, but I have a theory that the older sister was a member of the phone police. After her brother goes missing, all existence of him is erased. And when he comes back at the end, she acts like he never left. You can believe this one or not, but I think it adds a little bit of fun to the episode. The Tale of the Crimson Clown is one of the episodes that still manages to disturb me to this day. The second half of this episode is filled with really creepy scenes of the clown antagonizing this kid. The problem with this one is that I actually want the clown to succeed. The little brother in this one is made to be a brat, but I think they went a bit overboard. The older brother had money designated to buy a birthday gift for their mom, and the little brother steals it to buy a video game. And then when they get back, the little brother acts like he did nothing wrong and blames it all on the older brother. So then we have to watch the mom get mad at the older brother for no reason, and the little brother gets everything he wants. So at the end, when the little brother apologizes to the clown and the world goes back to normal, I'm like, I actually wanted him to die. Also, what's with this random skull just chilling in the room? What kid would just casually hang this in their bedroom? If the acting in The Tale of the Hatching were a little better, this one would probably be a top 14 episode. It follows these two kids who are sent to this strange boarding school. During meals, they're fed this dessert called sponge, spelt with a U, that hypnotizes the kids who eat it into going into the basement and helping these alien eggs hatch. The main characters see this all happen, and it's up to them to keep the aliens from taking over the school. I really like the music and Dutch angles in this one, but like I said, the two main characters need a bit of work. We have Jasmine. She's meant to be this prima donna who doesn't want to live at the boarding school and hates the school uniforms. The acting from the girl who plays her is just good enough where I both love it and hate it at the same time. The main character, Augie, though, is staler than Madam Web. For one, he literally just looks like Gary from the Midnight Society, and secondly, he delivers all of his lines with no more enthusiasm than this.
Look, Jazz, you can get crazy and make a big stink like you always do, but it's not gonna change things. If Mom and Dad could take us with them, they would, but they can't, so get over it.
Augie, I've never been away from home.
It's only for 6 months. We can handle it.
However, I will say the writing of their relationship is pretty good for siblings. Just barely out of the top 20 is the tale of the photo finish. This episode is pretty much about classism when it comes to schools and universities. These two roommates and best friends at a college, boarding school, I don't know, it's never really mentioned, want to become members of this club called the Lion Society. One of the main characters has all of the requirements but isn't allowed to join because he doesn't quite fit in. And this is all pretty much chalked up to his family's wealth. While the other roommate throws a prank to check off the final steps of joining the club, they discover a photo of this photographer at the old Lion Society house. And this photo ends up sucking up any current, former, or upcoming members of the Lion Society. The ghost of the photographer in the photo is in the same situation as the main character. He had every requirement to join the club but wasn't allowed in. And this magic photo that allows him to take pictures of the members is his way of getting revenge. This one is a really solid story, the only thing dragging it down is the logistics of the photo itself. Since the photo was of the old Lion Society house, once the main character walks in, he's just in the photo. I guess this makes sense since no one goes into the house anymore, but I feel like they could have written something that was a little more clever. I know we've talked about a lot of ghost stories on this list, but The Tale of Apartment 214 has one of the best mixes of emotion and scares. The new girl in an apartment complex makes friends with Madeline, the old woman living in apartment 214. Madeline asks the girl to come visit her one night, but the girl forgets her promise when her new friend invites her to go to a concert. The girl realizes her mistake, and when she gets back, Madeline is crying and demands why did she break her promise. But, as you suspected, Madeline is a ghost the whole time. The rest of the episode is Madeline seeking revenge at the girl, but at the end, the girl says she just wanted to make a new friend, and Madeline forgives her. In fact, the girl and her mom move in with Madeline. It's a really sweet episode, but at the same time, do not watch this episode at night if you have a faint heart. The Tale of the Shiny Red Bicycle is a really accurate depiction of PTSD. The main character wasn't able to save his best friend's life when he was a kid, and it's been haunting him ever since. When the main character starts seeing the friend a lot more one day, everyone in his family and around him just tells him to get over it. And although the main character thinks the ghost is seeking revenge, it's actually warning him to save his brother from the same fate. It's a great story and a great depiction of grieving, and in the end he's able to save Ben, Come on, Ben. You're giving us a bad name here. I could have been able to get my foot out of that rock. I mean, come on, it doesn't look that deep. Let's be real here. The Tale of Train Magic is the third story in a row to have really good emotion in a ghost story. However, this time the emotion isn't tied to the ghost specifically. This time it comes from the two kids coping with the death of their father. The older brother is doing fine by blocking out any connection he had with his father, while the little brother is spending more and more times with trains since their father was a train conductor. It's a nice contrast to show the two ways that people cope with loss. The ghost story itself also has a lot of different elements at play. The ghost conductor who died on the train years ago is trying to give his stopwatch to the little brother so he can become the one who's stuck on the train. The set design of the ghost train itself is really cool. The actor who plays the engineer Cap does a really good job, and I like the shot when he's on the model train. And I like how at the end both brothers have to get involved to beat the ghost. Acting from the little brother isn't the best, and the ending is a bit too convoluted, but other than that, it's a very solid episode. The Tale of Laughing in the Dark is my pick for the better of the two clown episodes in the show. While Zeebo the Clown isn't as threatening as the Crimson Clown, his design is far superior. When I'm going to get a drink of water in the middle of the night, I'm afraid that this specific Zeebo doll will get me over all of the other monsters in Are You Afraid of the Dark? The episode itself is pretty simple. This kid, Ouija, yes, like the meme, dares this kid Josh to go into the funhouse and steal the nose of the Zeebo doll. Josh steals the nose, but the ghost of Zeebo the Clown ends up coming to his house to try and get it back. Now, we don't see Zeebo specifically chase him in the house, but it's the fear of the unknown that makes us afraid here. Josh ends up giving the nose back, and all's well that ends well, but real quick, can we just talk about how he got cigars? I get this was the 90s and times were different back then, but bro is a child. I heard someone say once that you could just say you were buying them from your parents. Can someone confirm that that was how it worked? The Tale of the Midnight Madness has some of the best acting performances in the show. This one is about a vintage movie theater that's on the verge of shutting down since no one goes to see the black and white films anymore. However, Dr. Vink drops off a film that he assures the staff will sell tickets. Also, real quick, I just want to talk about that this one has the manager drinking alcohol. I get that in the last episode, Zeebo smoked a lot of cigars, and in a future episode, there's a girl who smokes cigarettes. So I just want to take this time to point out the balls that Are You Afraid of the Dark had to portray these in a kid's show. Anyways, going back to the film, it's none other than... Nosferatu! The movie does sell tickets, but the manager ends up breaking the deal he made with Dr. Vink earlier in the episode. One night, the Nosferatu film ends up being left in the projector, and the vampire comes out of the screen. And it's up to the two teenage employees working at the movie theater to get Nosferatu back where he belongs. This one has a really fun ending, not only with the main character going into the screen, but it turns out this was Dr. Vink's plan of revenge all along. And now that he bought the theater, he can do whatever he wants. This one flows really nicely, but it doesn't really have any scares until the end, which is why it just barely didn't make semifinals. And the first season to be completely eliminated from the list is Season 1 with the Tale of the Dark music. But this season should leave with its head held high because this is a damn good episode. This one follows a family who inherited a house from an uncle they barely knew existed. Whenever the main character Andy does chores in the basement, he ends up finding this demon hiding in the cellar. The demon can take many forms: glowing red eyes, a talking doll that is the second scariest thing I'm worried about when getting a drink of water in the middle of the night, and the scariest of all, bad chroma key. Nah, I'm just kidding, it turns into a skeleton. The one flaw in this episode is Andy goes from remembering the demon to not remembering the demon, back to remembering the demon. The title of this episode comes from the fact that the demon is lured out of the cellar whenever music is played. Andy decides to play a prank on the neighborhood bully by trapping him in the basement and playing music. However, Andy leaves him down there long enough that the demon ends up killing the guy. When Andy comes downstairs, the demon gives Andy a new bike to replace the one that the bully broke. The demon explains that when he's fed a soul, he'll give the feeder anything they want, which explains why the uncle the house belonged to got so rich in the first place. The seller pulls a "Feed me, Seymour," and we hear Andy's little sister come home. Eric confirms at the end that Andy didn't feed his little sister to the demon, he only scared her, but come on, if that didn't happen at the end, it is heavily implied he was gonna feed his sister to the demon. And in my head, that's the canonical ending. We've reached the top 14, which means it's time for semifinals. Results here are determined by the sum of the score in semifinals and quarterfinals, so consistency is key to make the top 6. Anyways, you know the drill, so let's get to the non-advancing semifinalists. The Tale of the Secret Admirer really feels like one of the most adult episodes of the show. This girl named Maggie is receiving secret admirer letters. She isn't able to track down the source, but the source is able to track down her. This guy that Maggie is friends with ends up getting threat letters from the secret admirer. In these letters, the admirer calls him Superstar, but this admirer isn't Glam Rock Freddy we're dealing with. The big twist here is that the secret admirer is a ghost of a man that Maggie's parents had to deal with when they were in high school. The finale takes place in the wood shop, and man, they really did a good job with the burn makeup here. Combined with the stocky behavior of the ghost himself, it's really unsettling. Unfortunately, it all kind of falls apart once we see this explosion here. I'm betting I could produce something of that quality. Ready? Watch. See? It's that easy! The Tale of Bigfoot Ridge just barely beats out The Secret Admirer for my favorite Season 6 episode. Mainly for the set design at the beginning of this episode. It takes place at a ski resort and the main characters end up getting trapped inside this lodge during a blizzard, but I also really like when the main character is watching home videos of her missing friend. The main reason the characters are stuck inside the lodge is because they went looking for the missing friend, Gina. However, the lodge is haunted by a monster called an Umbra, which sucks the life out of anything that looks into it. There's a really good survival element in this one, where the Umbra is weak to light. The characters sit by the fire because it's the only place where they're safe from the Umbra. Oh yeah, by the way, Hayden Christensen is in this one. He ends up avenging himself when he plays Anakin Skywalker a few years later and ends up killing all the younglings by turning on the generator here and defeating the Umbra. Once again, setting of this one is amazing, but acting by Mr. Christensen himself could be better. There's something about art that can be really unsettling, and the Tale of the Unfinished Painting really takes advantage of that. This artist in a creative slump ends up working for this old woman to try and get inspired. The woman lets anyone painting at her place only use one brush, and it's not explained at first, but soon we see her worshipping a disembodied head? What the fuck? The last time I watched this, I wasn't sure if the head is the woman herself, or if it's just the way she gets her magic. Either way, whenever a painter signs their name on the painting, they end up getting trapped inside the brush they were painting with. This is another episode that genuinely disturbs me because when the girl touches all the brushes, we see all the souls trapped inside. When the woman's about to be found out, she throws all the brushes into the fire, and we see the worlds the painters are trapped in start to catch on fire. There's something about all the paintings in this one that really creeps me out, and it's one of my favorite episodes because of that. Fun fact, The Tale of the Night Nurse is the first episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark I ever watched, which funnily enough is the last episode of the show. Guess it's fitting, because I was born years after the show aired. Whoever keeps slamming their door in the dorm next to me, I swear to God. They just did it again! They just did it again! Anyways, back to the actual episode and not my college life. This is one of the ghost stories with the good ghost, bad ghost kind of story going on. The good ghost is a little girl who, after falling down the stairs at her birthday party, was taken care of by the bad ghost, the night nurse, who injected her with poison and killed her. The two main characters try to stop the night nurse, and I don't know what it is, but there is something genuinely horrifying about the nurse's performance. I don't know if it's just because this is the first episode of the show I watched and it brings back memories, or maybe it's because of the needle she constantly carries around. It's really threatening. One of the characters puts on the dress that was left behind of the little girl, and she goes back in time. And it turns out at the end that the nurse wasn't trying to kill the girl on purpose, the girl was just allergic to penicillin and the nurse didn't know. It's a really good story, which is why I'm giving it the Ghost Story Bronze Medal. Quick disclaimer, there are other episodes on this list that you may consider as ghost stories, however, I think they have outstanding elements that qualify them as something else. Alright, we have reached the moment you've been waiting for. Fluff Snowball's top 10 episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? And also, I hope you like Season 3, because The Tale of the Dollmaker is a start of a 4-episode run this season is gonna have. This episode is about a girl who goes to stay at her aunt and uncle's house to play with her friend Susan. However, it turns out that Susan went missing. And when exploring the attic of Susan's old house, she finds Susan trapped in a dollhouse. This episode has a lot of surreal elements to it, like the door that leads into the dollhouse leading off the roof. The makeup of Susan transforming into a doll is perfectly eerie, and also when they climb into the attic of this dollhouse, there's something about the stuffed animals that really gives me bad vibes. It's a really fun episode with some really good emotion with the aunt and uncle tied behind it. I'm sure you're tired of me saying this by now, but The Tale of the Quicksilver is another episode with really good acting and really good scares throughout. This episode starts with a girl trying to get rid of a ghost, but instead she ends up burning to death? Dang, they're really getting straight to it on this one, they're not playing around. A new family ends up moving into the house, and the older brother has to stop the little brother from suffering the same fate as the girl from the beginning. We see the girl's twin sister at the school the older brother goes to, and we learn that the Quicksilver is a nice ghost of the girl who died at the beginning. A great take on a simple ghost story with some really good reconciling at the end earns this one the Ghost Story Silver Medal. But wait, if this one got the silver medal, then what gets the gold? Well, drumroll please, it's The Tale of the Dream Girl. A brother and sister work at a bowling alley together. The older brother puts on a ring he finds in his locker and it ends up getting stuck on his hand. Now with the ring on, he ends up seeing a girl in a Letterman jacket. The guy's little sister tells him that the girl he's been seeing is the ghost of a girl who died in a car accident. The siblings go to investigate the ghost and... Okay, I remained unspoiled when I watched this one for the first time, and I want you to as well. I know some of you won't care, and that's okay, but if you want to be spoiler-free, go to this timestamp because I'm about to say one of the best twists in Are You Afraid of the Dark history. Okay, everyone gone? 3, 2, 1. The brother was dead as well! The older brother was the boyfriend of the girl who died, and he tried to save her, but he died as well. The little sister explains that she was the only one that could see him, which is why he'd been getting ignored by everyone around him all episode. I might be misremembering this one, but I'm pretty sure the first time I watched this one, it made me cry. If this one focused a little bit more on scares, it definitely would have made the final round. Okay, let's get real here. When you hear The Tale of the Dangerous Soup, you're probably expecting one of the worst episodes in the show. So imagine my surprise when I turn on this one and see one of the most unique concepts for an episode. This restaurant named The Wild Boar has a dish called the Dangerous Soup, which is so good that people will literally pay hundreds of dollars just to try a serving. Dr. Vink, the head chef, only lets his employees have one taste of the soup, and if they break his rule or get on his nerves, they get sent to this weird freezer chamber. Vink shows them this idol that will create an illusion of their greatest fear. And if they believe in the illusion, pure fear will be extracted, and that's the secret ingredient of the soup. One employee says he's not afraid of anything, but the idol ends up summoning his suppressed fear of his abusive uncle. Dang, this one is getting dark. Sadly, after such a good moment, we have to watch one of the worst effects this show ever produced. Bruh, what is this? Bad effects aside, this one does have one of my favorite concepts of the show, and it has some really good acting to top things off. If I were to make this list again, it would probably make the final 6, but I think good old Lucky 7 is a great spot for The Tale of the Dangerous Soup. Okay, introducing what round we're at is basically a formality at this point. The only reason I'm still showing this is to hype up finals a little more and also to plug Imagine, aka my best short film. I'm not going to list what each episode got in finals because the cum from quarters, semis, and finals adds up to the placement I gave each episode. So if you really want to know what I gave an episode in finals, just look at the top left corner. The Tale of Station 109.1 is the episode I have the least connection with, but I think it made it here just because of how solid it is. The premise of this one is this emo kid ends up listening to a radio station in a hearse called Station 109.1. When the kid visits the station, he finds a waiting room full of adults, including the manager, Gilbert Godfrey, rest in peace, who gives us one of the best performances here.
Do not knock on the window! What's the matter with you? You can't read? Here, knock window. Do not on the. Let's try it together, shall we? Do not knock on the window!
And while we're talking about recognizable actors, this episode has a 2-for-1 special with young Ryan Gosling. No wonder I thought this kid was literally me the whole time. Going back to the episode, the station the kid ends up in is actually a transfer point for lost souls who didn't make their way to the afterlife, which leads to Gilbert Godfrey thinking that the kid is just another lost soul who's not ready to pass on. Aside from the great story and the S-tier acting, I really like the set piece of the doors to the afterlife. We see most people at the beginning going to metaphorical hell, but this episode ends on a nice note as we see one of the characters go to metaphorical heaven. While I still view this as the weakest of the episodes that made finals, it's still a really fun episode and premise. The Tale of the 13th Floor was the second episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark I ever watched. This one follows Billy and her adopted brother Karen, who live in an apartment complex. One day, new tenants move onto the 13th floor, and they're dressed the same as this guy who keeps on appearing on Karen's TV. The new arrivals are a toy company hoping to get Karen to test out their new toys. Just like the doll maker, there's something about this toy factory that's really off-putting. It's like Seuss Landing from Universal's Islands of Adventure a few years before it opened. We see that the owners of the factory are the people that have been showing up on Karen's TV, and they get Karen and Billy to test out a few games. Karen is the only one that is able to succeed at the games, and she finds out that the owners of the toy factory are actually these Slender Man-like aliens. Karen's able to save her brother before she's abducted, however, her TV talks to her one final time. The aliens say that they accidentally left Karen on Earth 10 years ago and they came back to try and get her. Billy doesn't seem to buy it, but Karen remembers it all. It's why Karen was able to survive the atmospheric pressure that was being increased, and why the owners of the store kept telling her to come home and we need to get her back. The blank-faced aliens are pretty scary, but I think The Tale of Many Faces does a slightly better job at emotionless monsters. An aspiring model goes to a theater to try and improve her confidence. She sees the cast of the play walk around in these weird, creepy theater face masks. And she meets Madame Visage, who helps her confidence grow and her beauty increase. And the main character gets so beautiful that Madame Visage decides to steal her look. No, literally steal her look. She can steal people's faces. Turns out the actresses from the play are actually just girls who got their face stolen. Since they're unable to look beautiful in the real world again, Madame Visage gives them a mask and a number and forces them to make costumes. If you remember the tale of the mystical mirror from way back in the list, this episode is basically that one but 10 times better. Girls with no faces is way scarier than girls turning into dogs. I like the uprising ending in this one a lot more than whatever the hell happened to the tale of the mystical mirror. I genuinely don't remember how it ended. In real life, one of my biggest fears is going to a hospital at night, and guess what? That's the setting of The Tale of the Night Shift. Calm down, there's more that I like about this one aside from just the setting. This one is about this girl who works the night shift at a hospital when suddenly everyone there seems more lifeless than normal. Turns out the new girl she was training is actually a shape-shifting vampire. And he produces some actually startling jump scares throughout the episode. This is one of the most intense episodes of the show. We have shots of empty blood bags, a morgue, and at the end, the vampire threatens to drop the girl off the building and is like, "I'm gonna lick up your blood once you splatter on the floor." Damn! Did they realize they were writing for a kids show? Well, this is probably one of the best produced episodes of the entire show. The side plot with this guy Felix who is turning into a vampire gets a little confusing. They say he was the first one to get bit, which is why he changed faster than the others, but at the same time he's still kind of human. I don't know, I had to watch this one like 3-4 times to fully grasp what was happening. Even then, I still like what they did with it. Phenomenal episode. The last 2 episodes on this list, I would literally consider perfect. Unless I were to really comb through these episodes, I don't think I could find a single flaw with either one of them. There's very few camping-related episodes on this list, and I think that's because The Tale of Watcher's Woods absolutely mastered it. In this episode, eager newbie camper is paired up with bored veteran camper. When the new camper sees the ominous warning of never enter Watcher's Woods, ever, the veteran camper says that 3 girls went missing in Watcher's Woods because someone stole their whistles and they got lost. The 2 girls get paired up for an activity, and by the way, this is the episode I was talking about where one of the girls is about to smoke. And that's actually a plot point in this one, as one of the girls takes the lighter. This will be important later. Since Watcher's Woods moves around, the 2 girls end up getting lost and they end up wandering into the woods and... What is this? What is this? I know they are not putting something this terrifying in Are You Afraid of the Dark and not explaining it. Anyways, veteran camper ends up finding the 3 girls who went missing, but they think that she is the one who stole their whistles and got them lost in the first place. The girls explain that the Watcher is the one who cursed them to be stuck in the forest until they find their whistles. The newbie girl has to try and save the day and get the whistles back, but she ends up running into the Watcher. But because his woods are on a fire watch, she pulls out the lighter and the Watcher's like,
I was just kidding! Come on! You guys know I was just kidding, right?
This one is a really fun, surprisingly dark episode of the show. However, it just got beaten out by one with better acting. And that is The Tale of the Dead Man's Float. This nerdy guy named Zeke ends up helping this swimmer named Clarice, yes, like the thing they clean pools with, into fixing the school's old pool. They make a deal that Zeke will teach Clarice chemistry if Clarice can teach Zeke how to swim. They practice in the school's newly reopened pool, but there's a spirit that ends up trying to drown them if they swim. The janitor of the school reveals that he was a lifeguard that wasn't able to save a kid who drowned at the beginning because of the spirit. The 3 of them decide they want their pool to be free of ghosts. Zeke finds a chemical that makes them able to see the ghost, and oh my god, Zeke! Could you really not have found a color to result from a chemical reaction other than red for this thing? This monster is genuinely haunting. This episode has it all. Great scares, more Oscar-worthy acting.
I tried to save him, but it wouldn't let me. It pulled him away from me, and then and he was gone.
A poster for date rape that they might have forgot to take down. I don't know, it's in the show now. What more could you ask for? Oh my god! Jay Baruchel! He's the kid that drowns at the beginning, but still! The Tale of the Dead Man's Float is my favorite episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark now, and it probably will be for a very long time.
Guys, horrible news. Editing that part of the video took so long, I'm in college now! It's that one right there, bro. Did you hear how that was? Now, if you just wanted to see me rank all the episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark, then you can click off the video. Please don't, please don't, please don't! Now, you may remember me talking about how I wanted to keep track of who told each story and what season it was from. Well, it's finally time to see the rankings of the members of the Midnight Society and the seasons as a whole. But it's already taken me a month to make this video already, so speedrun time!
Starting off with the members of the Midnight Society, since some of them told different numbers of stories, that affects their averages, so I broke them up into groups. Starting with the two members who only told 2 stories, at the bottom we have Eric from Season 1. Eric was a character who would make sarcastic comments a lot, but obviously the show didn't think he was interesting enough because they got rid of him after 1 season. And I don't know why this is the case, but if you only told 2 stories, they were kinda both bangers. This is even better demonstrated by Stig from Season 5, who didn't even show up until finals on this list. He just showed up one day, told the best story the show has ever seen, got rejected, came back, told the 6th best story the show has ever seen, sticked around for the rest of the season, and then vanished. I know he was supposed to be the gross member of the Midnight Society, but his stories were absolutely spotless. Our next category is all of the members who told 4 to 6 stories. At the bottom of this list, we have Kristen from Seasons 1 and 2. It wasn't until I made this ranking when I realized that none of Kristen's stories really are anything special in the show, because she was the only person throughout the entire run to not have a story make quarterfinals. Kristen was a popular girl who had a growing relationship with David, another member of the Midnight Society, and her stories normally focused on ghosts having unfinished business. Though I will say I liked how she normally dressed up for all of her stories. Just above Kristen is her clone in the Revival series, Megan. Megan's character is slightly more focused on being a rich kid who isn't comfortable in the woods. Megan's stories usually involve romance and teen drama. And while she did tell the Tale of the Secret Admirer and the Tale of the Lunar Locust, her bad stories are really bad. In 6th place we have Andy, also from Seasons 6 and 7. His character is a dumb, gentle giant. 2 of his stories are pretty bad, one of them is mid, and another one is really good. And he's somewhat of a trendsetter for the Revival series because his stories don't really have anything in common. That's a theme you'll see with most of the Midnight Society from Seasons 6 and 7. Quinn is another member of the Revival series, but I actually liked most of his stories. Quinn is the Revival series' tough guy character. I think he ended up this low on the list because his episodes were up against some really tough competition. And while I don't like Highway 13 that much, the Wisdom Glass, Vampire Town, and the Reanimator are some of my favorite episodes from the Revival. David is the shy, introverted boy from Seasons 1 and 2 that had a crush on Kristen. His stories were usually about the consequences of past events not being resolved. In 3rd place, we have Frank from Seasons 1 through 4. He was the original Seasons tough guy character, and some of his stories included the reoccurring character Dr. Ving. But he's another member of the Midnight Society where I either really love his stories or they're just kinda weird. Vange is one of the few members from the Revival series to actually kinda get some love in this ranking. She's a young tomboyish character and her stories don't have much to do with each other. And while she did tell my 2nd least favorite episode of the show, 2 of her stories made semifinals, which considering that she only told 4 is really impressive. But of course, blowing her competition out of the water is Sam. Sam appeared from Seasons 3 through 5 and is basically the love interest of that era of the show. Bland personality aside, apart from Season 4, all of her stories made quarterfinals, with 2 of them making the final round. The last category we'll be looking at is any of the members who told 7+ stories. Gary was in all 5 of the original seasons and was basically the leader of the old Midnight Society. His stories usually involved magic, and some of his stories included Sardell. Kiki was also in all 5 of the original seasons and served as the tomboy for that era. Her stories have 2 major trends, either the danger of carelessness or history repeating itself. Tucker was also in 5 seasons of the show, however he was introduced in Season 3 and led the revivals of 6 and 7. Tucker is Gary's younger brother who starts off obnoxious, but later grows to become the leader in the Revival series. Tucker's stories are usually about relationships that start off bad, but grow to become stronger. He's also the member of the Midnight Society who told the most stories, with 13 total. Also, I just want to mention, he told 4 stories in Season 6, and all 4 of them made quarterfinals. Pretty impressive. But winning this category is Betty Ann from the first 5 seasons. She's this weird girl who has a liking for the supernatural, and her stories usually involve some of the most memorable monsters from the show. Moving on to the season ranking, Season 1 is statistically the worst season. While it has its charm and the good episodes are memorable, a lot of the acting in this season really shows some growing pains. Because I'm not counting the 3-parter Tale of the Silver Sight, Season 7 has 10 episodes instead of the normal 13. However, I don't think it affected the averages as much as it did for the storyteller rankings, so that's why we're keeping all the seasons together. The episodes in this season are very hit or miss. While there are some episodes in this season that are very fun with cool ideas, the bad episodes in this season are very bland with boring ideas. Now I know you see Seasons 6 and 7 towards the bottom and you think, seasonal rot, just as I suspected. But Season 6 was actually very close to making number 4 on this list. While yes, this season does have some of my least favorite episodes of the show, the rest of the episodes are pretty consistent in quality. Season 2 just barely beats out Season 6 with a 0.8 average quality increase. This season is when a lot of the production design and acting started to increase, and you can see that even in the bad episodes. Unfortunately, some of the episode premises are too simple and make for forgettable episodes. When I calculated the data, I didn't expect Season 4 to make number 3 on the season rankings. However, when I think about it, it makes sense. Since I'm not counting the 2-parter of Tale of Cutter's Treasure, this season only has 11 episodes. And aside from 2 episodes on either end of the spectrum, a lot of the episodes from this season fall towards the middle of the ranking. It may not have some of my favorite episodes, but the episodes themselves are very consistent in quality. Season 5 is another example of a hit or miss season. What places this one second on the list is the highs in this one reach incredible heights. 3 of the episodes from this season made the top 6, and 6 episodes overall from this season made quarterfinals. But even if this season had less bad episodes dragging it down, it wouldn't even come close to the number 1 spot. That's because Season 3 leads with an average quality increase of 14 spots. While only 1 episode from this season made the final round, 6 made the top 10. And that's not even mentioning that 8 of the episodes from this season made quarterfinals. In other words, just under 2/3 of the season made the top 35 episodes. I don't know who hired the team who made Season 3, but they should have stuck with them for the rest of the show. Maybe they did, I don't know, I wasn't checking. Okay, now we're done. And your reward for making it through this video is fans are on, hold on. Alright, now we're finally done with this video. And your reward for making it through the whole thing is seeing me in this NSDA Nationals 2024 shirt. I hope to do more of these large ranking videos in the future, so if you like this one, make sure to smash that like button